spill my coffee. Oh, that's still too hot. I'll get back to that in a minute. Look, I know what you're thinking. It's that time of year again where every movie loving YouTuber on the planet is out here dropping their definitive rankings of the best films of 2025. We've all seen the thumbnails, we've heard the same arguments, and yet, well, here I am. Whenever these lists start popping up, the same question always follows. Was it actually a good year for movies? To be honest, I think it's a bad faith question in general. Every year is a good year if you're actually paying attention, but I'll go one step further for 2025. I think this has been one of the absolute best years for cinema since the pandemic. It wasn't just a year of content, it was a year where veteran masters and new voices alike were swinging for the fences. In this video, I'm talking about the films that forced me to look into the mirror and wrestle with my own cynicism, and in more than a few cases, left me a total emotional wreck in the theater. And I'll be honest, I get a lot of anxiety about the fact that I can't just plug my brain into the computer and dump every thought that I have onto the scripts that I make for these videos. I view films as conversations across time, but when you're working within the time constraints of a YouTube video, trying to sum up why a film is the best of the year feels like a massive, daunting task. But I did my best. What's up, everyone? It is editing Josh here. I got my assistant editor with me. There's something I forgot to mention, which is the fact that I obviously didn't see every movie that came out this year. So up on the screen right now, right over my face, are a whole bunch of movies that I did not get to that I really wanted to, and that I somewhat predict would have made it onto my year-end list. Films like If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, or Sarat, or It Was Just an Accident, or The Secret Agent. And The Testament of Anne Lee, I'm going to see literally this weekend. So I didn't get a chance to put any of those on this list. So just want to throw that out there that if a movie isn't on the list, there's a good chance that I just didn't see it. But I did see quite a bit of the new releases this year. Anyway, back to the video. For the complete list of my 2025 rankings, all 60 new releases I saw this year, I'll link a Letterboxd list that I made down in the description. This video is my personal top 20 films of 2025, so let's get into it, starting with Kathryn Bigelow returns with a white-knuckle procedural nightmare that instantly cements itself among her most gripping work. A House of Dynamite plays out in real time as Washington scrambles to interpret and survive a possible incoming nuclear strike, replaying the same 30-minute window from different perspectives to build unbearable tension. Bigelow weaponizes every tool that she has: handheld chaos, tight zooms, ticking clocks, yet the film's real power is in its empathy. Beneath the jargon and blinking consoles are terrified people making impossible decisions. Their humanity is leaking through the cracks. It's a systemic horror movie of sorts, a portrait of how fragile our structures of safety really are, and one of the year's most pulse-pounding surprises. Derek Cianfrance brings his signature emotional realism to more mainstream territory with Roofman, and the result is a surprisingly tender blend of romance, crime drama, and Americana. The film feels unmistakably Derek Cianfrance. It's raw, it's grounded, it's heavy with human ache, even as it plays with the genre elements that should, on paper, pull him out of his lane. Channing Tatum gives one of his most soulful performances, anchoring a narrative about love, desperation, and the doomed momentum of bad decision making. It's a story told with a light touch but a heavy heart, and it proves that Derek Cianfrance's gift for finding bruised humanity in unlikely places hasn't faded one bit. From a roof man to a running man, this film is a jolt of pure throwback action movie energy. It's stylish, it's clever, and relentlessly entertaining. Even if its tonal edges never quite lock into place, Glenn Powell is magnetic as Ben Richards, though the film can't decide whether he's a scrappy everyman or a quippy superheroic lead. resulting in a fun but inconsistent protagonist. Still, the movie's dystopian satire feels eerily close to our current reality, and Edgar Wright's set pieces crackle with the kind of cinematic electricity that's been missing from big budget spectacles lately. Is it imperfect? Absolutely. Most films are. But when it hits hard. And sometimes a film makes the list simply because it reminds me how good a pure popcorn thrill ride can be. All right, I'm going to take a first sip of my coffee. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Nothing like a 5 p.m. coffee. Yorgos Lanthimos' Bugonia is a cold, suffocating reimagining of the Korean cult classic Save the Green Planet, a film that I personally love, trading the original's punk rock chaos for something far more controlled and unsettling. Jesse Plemons is riveting as a conspiracy radicalized man convinced that a powerful pharmaceutical CEO, played with razor sharp precision by Emma Stone, is an alien sent to judge humanity, and the film becomes a tense, claustrophobic duel between paranoia and corporate doublespeak. Rather than mimic the manic energy of the original, Lanthimos fully imposes his own style. Still compositions, creeping dread, and a punishing sense of inevitability that feels eerily tuned to our algorithm fed, distrust soaked moment. While the film offers less empathy for its protagonist than its predecessor, it gains power through its bleak clarity, culminating in an ending that lands like a moral guillotine. It's uncomfortable, it's grimly funny, and deeply relevant, a remake that understands its time by refusing to soften its judgment. Die My Love is one of the year's most emotionally layered films, a brutal, surreal, deeply intimate portrait of mental illness and motherhood that nonetheless finds moments of biting humor. Jennifer Lawrence gives a fearless, feral performance, stripping herself of any vanity to burrow into the character's rawest edges. The film walks a razor thin tonal line, zigzagging between tragedy and comedy in a way that feels startlingly true to life. Its surreal flourishes and unflinching honesty make it the kind of film that stays with you in ways that you don't expect, revealing deeper meaning the more that you sit with it. Brutal, bleak, and suffocatingly tense, The Long Walk is a Stephen King adaptation that refuses to let up. From the first gunshot, the film creates an atmosphere of dread so thick that you can practically taste the anxiety in the theater. The violence is abrupt and unforgiving, making every moment feel like a countdown to the next emotional gut punch. Yet, within that brutality is a startlingly tender depiction of brotherhood and empathy, anchored by stellar performances from Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson. It's harrowing, it's exhausting, and, in my opinion, unforgettable. Exactly what this story needed to be. Sorry Baby is the kind of small, deceptively simple indie that sneaks up on you and ends up inspiring you long after the credits roll. It's breezy and intimate on the surface, but layered with emotional nuance, following a late 20s protagonist navigating life's in between spaces with humor, awkwardness, and unexpected depth. Films like this are catnip for anyone who creates. They make you want to go home and start writing again. It has that Francis Ha, worst person in the world DNA, but in my opinion, I like this more than both of those examples. It's warmer and more grounded with a cast that brings charm and texture to every moment. It's a cozy little reminder of why human scale stories still matter, and I've got my eye on Ava Victor in the future. Danny Boyle returns to his apocalyptic universe with a film that feels like a fusion of every mode he's ever worked in. It's kinetic, it's gritty, and colorful, and strangely emotional. 28 years later honors the DV shot grime and jittery pulse of the original while evolving stylistically, layering in Boyle's surreal flourishes, bold musical choices, and hypercharged tonal shifts. It's ugly and beautiful at the same time. It's chaotic, yet it's very precise, and it captures that same feeling of looking directly into the future, the way the 28 Days Later once did. As a longtime Danny Boyle disciple, this scratched every itch for me: the style, the energy, the audacity, and reminded me how electrifying his filmmaking can be when he's firing on all cylinders. Ryan Johnson's Wake Up Dead Man might be my favorite of the Knives Out films so far. It's a riotously entertaining whodunit that somehow finds room for genuine philosophical weight. More than its predecessors, the film digs into questions of faith, moral authority, and the seductive danger of charismatic belief systems, all without collapsing into smug satire or culture war caricature. Ryan Johnson sharpens his misdirection by grounding the mystery in character behavior rather than gimmicks, allowing the puzzle to unfold naturally while the themes quietly take root. Josh O'Connor is a standout, anchoring this film with a performance that brings unexpected vulnerability and sincerity, while Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc feels more alive and reflective than ever. It's laugh out loud funny, structurally clever, and surprisingly emotional. A film that works both as a crowd pleasing mystery and as a thoughtful meditation on belief, on power, and the stories we tell ourselves to feel more righteous. Park Chan Wook's No Other Choice is one of the most entertaining and quietly devastating films of the year, a pitch black comedy that turns economic anxiety into something both absurd and horrifying. Lee Byung Hun is phenomenal as a laid off paper specialist whose desperate attempt to reclaim stability leads him down a path of increasingly bungled, darkly funny violence, played with the precision of a Looney Tunes nightmare. Director Park leans hard into tonal whiplash, blending slapstick mishaps with moments of genuine dread, all while flexing his formal muscle through inventive camera work, bold musical choices, and visual flourishes that feel playful rather than showy. Beneath all of the humor, though, lies a sharp critique of late stage capitalism, automation, and the way systems pit people against each other until survival feels like a zero sum game. It's funny, it's cruel, it's exhilarating, and deeply human. It's a film that entertains you first and then leaves you staring into the void once the laughter fades. It's worth saying right up front, One Battle After Another has been crowned the best film of the year by more lists than I can count, and I completely understand why. Paul Thomas Anderson is still operating at an elite level, and this film is a bold, confident pivot, an action forward, modern thriller that feels unmistakably his while breaking from the character study mold that he helped define throughout the 21st century. It's restless, propulsive, and alive with momentum, compressing its story into a few breathless days as Leonardo DiCaprio's former revolutionary scrambles to rescue his daughter in a world shaped by surveillance, militarization, and political decay. The craft is extraordinary, PTA's control of rhythm and pacing is immaculate, and Johnny Greenwood's score, especially in the film's final stretch, turns the action into something hypnotic and nerve shredding. The film moves like a single sustained pulse, stitching together set pieces with the precision of a master who knows exactly how to keep an audience locked in. There's also a sharp political awareness running beneath the surface, or directly on the surface, depending on who you are, capturing the exhausting feeling of living in a country where crisis follows crisis and resistance feels both necessary and endlessly compromised. Where my reaction slightly diverges from the consensus is purely a matter of emphasis. Compared to PTA's most emotionally immersive films, One Battle After Another prioritizes velocity over intimacy. DiCaprio's performance is funny, it's physical, and it's committed, but the film keeps us at a certain remove from anyone's inner life, favoring action and momentum over any sort of psychological excavation. And for many viewers, that's exactly the point, and arguably the film's greatest strength. For me, the enthusiasm is a notch quieter, but the admiration is still very real. This is a thrilling, ambitious, deeply assured work from one of our greatest living filmmakers, A movie that may not hit me with the same emotional force as PTA's past highs, but one that I respect enormously, and I'm excited to revisit as it continues to settle. Now, for a long time, I was a certified horror coward. Like watching Nightmare on Elm Street on cable ruined my life levels of coward. So the fact that Weapons landed this high on my list says a lot. Zach Kreger, coming off of Barbarian, proves here that he's not a one hit wonder, but a filmmaker with real command over tone, structure, and sustained dread. The setup alone is nightmare fuel. One night, 17 children wake up at exactly 2:17 a.m., walk out of their homes with their arms outstretched, and vanish. That's it. That's the hook. And honestly, that's almost all you should know going in. But what makes Weapons work isn't just the scares, though there are plenty. It's the constant crawling unease. The movie never lets you fully relax. It zigzags tonally, it shifts perspective between characters, and revisits events from different angles in a way that feels meticulous rather than confusing. You could feel the Paul Thomas Anderson Magnolia influence all over this and how these storylines eventually intersect, but filtered through a dark, Stephen King esque suburban nightmare. It's the kind of movie that keeps daring you to get ahead of it and then keeps proving you wrong. The cast is excellent across the board. Julia Garner grounds the film emotionally, Josh Brolin brings surprising humor and heaviness, and Alden Ehrenreich continues his streak of just subtly great work. The score is droning and scratchy and oppressive in the best way, and the film's pristine but sinister visual style, almost like a David Fincher movie, adds to the tension. By the time the ending hit, my theater lost its mind. So did I. It's one of those rare horror finales that feels both inevitable but still shocking, the kind that makes you grin even as your nerves are kind of shot. Weapons is scary, it's smart, and wildly confident. If this is the future of Zach Kreger's career, I'd say we're in very good hands. Friendship is one of those movies that sneaks up on you. At least it snuck up on me. On the surface, it plays like an awkward comedy about male bonding, insecurity, and social desperation. But the longer it goes, the more it starts to feel like something much darker and more revealing. Tim Robinson is operating in a mode that feels perfectly calibrated to his strengths and style of comedy. A man so starved for connection that every social interaction becomes a high wire act between hope and humiliation. Watching him try to force intimacy, normalcy, and belonging is excruciating in the exact way his comedy always is. It's funny, for sure, without a doubt, but also deeply uncomfortable. What really elevates the film is how seriously it takes that discomfort. This isn't just a collection of cringe bits all strung together. It's a character study about loneliness, about masculinity, and the quiet panic of realizing that you don't know how to connect with other people anymore. Paul Rudd plays the object of Robinson's fixation with just the right balance of charm and obliviousness, making the power imbalance between them both hilarious and kind of painful to watch. Their entire dynamic becomes the engine of the film, escalating in ways that feel absurd, but also uncomfortably plausible. Director Andrew DeYoung keeps the filmmaking clean and restrained, letting the performances do most of the work. The camera often lingers a beat too long, forcing you to sit inside moments that you'd normally want to escape from as fast as possible. And that's kind of the point. The movie understands that modern male loneliness isn't loud or dramatic. It's awkward pauses, it's missed signals, and the slow realization that you might be the problem in every room that you walk into. By the end, friendship feels less like a comedy and more like a mirror, one that reflects how fragile adult relationships can be, especially for people who never learned how to ask for connection without turning it into something transactional or desperate. Maybe it's revealing too much about myself, but I saw a whole lot of myself in the Tim Robinson character. The film was hilarious, it's brutal, and oddly sad, and it lingered with me far longer than I expected. And also, if you haven't done so already, go watch The Chair Company, one of the best shows of the year. The more time I've had to sit with Sinners, the higher it's climbed on my list. And honestly, part of that is because of what it represents. This was one of the biggest hits of the year, and it did so as an original R rated film that's horny as hell from Ryan Coogler, operating squarely in the pop mainstream space without feeling diluted. And that alone feels worth celebrating. These are exactly the kinds of swings that it seems like we all want studios to keep taking. On first watch, I was locked in by how confident and muscular the filmmaking is. Coogler knows how to move a story, how to stage spectacle, and how to give big moments real weight. The film balances genre thrills with character driven drama in a way that feels old school Hollywood, but updated for the moment. It's propulsive, it's emotional, and deeply watchable. The kind of movie you want to see with a crowd because you could feel the audience leaning forward together. But what really made Sinners grow on me was watching how it landed culturally. The movie sparked conversation. People showed up for it. It wasn't just content that came and went, it stuck around. And as I reflected on it more, I started to appreciate how much care Coogler puts into making something accessible without making it shallow. There's anger here, there's grief here, there's joy here, but it's all delivered through a framework that invites people in rather than pushing them away. I also love how unapologetically big it is. It isn't an indie movie masquerading as a studio film or vice versa. It's a full throated, crowd pleasing movie with real ideas made by a filmmaker who understands both craft and audience. The fact that it worked financially and culturally gives me real hope. Now, obviously, Sinners may not have hit me like some of the quieter, more introspective films on the list that are coming up, but the longer I sat with it, the more I admired its ambition and impact. And honestly, we need more movies like this: big, bold, original, and unafraid to aim high. And also, it probably features the best scene of the year. You know what I'm talking about. Also, this isn't in my script, but this was a big year for cunnilingus. Just putting that out there. I don't know what that says culturally or anything, but there are three movies on this entire top 20 that feature cunnilingus. And I think that's cool. I'm an ally. And at my number six spot, I actually have a two-way tie. I'll be honest, I spent way too much time trying to rank these against each other, but eventually I just realized I couldn't pick between them, so I'm just gonna combine them. Truly, this was the year of Richard Linklater for me. He released two films that feel like two sides of his creative identity: the theatrical, verbose Linklater and the naturalistic, hangout Linklater. First up is Blue Moon. Now, I'm a certified Ethan Hawke disciple. I've watched this man on screen since I was a kid. The first time I saw Explorers blew my mind. But I think this might be his finest work to date. The film is basically a bottle episode following songwriter Lorenz Hart on the night of the Oklahoma premiere. Hart is watching his former partner, Richard Rodgers, debut a massive hit with someone else, and it has the energy of a man standing on the sidewalk watching his ex walk into a party with their new partner. It's Linklater back in his wheelhouse: confined space, characters talking, and time unfolding in near real time. Hawk is in every frame, vibrating with jealousy and talking practically to stay alive. But beneath the razor sharp dialogue is a brutal look at artistic envy. There's a scene in a coat room where Margaret Qualley tells Hart that she loves him, but not like that. And that's the thesis of the film. Lorenz Hart is a man that history pats on the back while he dies alone. I felt deeply, uncomfortably seen by that idea. What really sticks with me is how it captures that specific ugly artistic envy that we don't like to admit we have. It's that feeling when someone you know succeeds and your first thought isn't, I'm happy for them, but that should be me. Andrew Scott is also incredible as Richard Rodgers. He plays it with this tender pity, like a man who loves his friend, but simply cannot keep dragging him out of gutters anymore. This film is a spectacular, painful gem that uses its theatricality to dig into the architecture of a fading life. Then we have Nouvelle Vague, which depicts the making of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. If Blue Moon is the theatrical Linklater, this is the stripped back, hangout version that we love from Dazed and Confused and Everybody Wants Some. And I don't use this phrase lightly, but it's a total vibe. It's a cinephile's dream where you're constantly pointing at the screen as icons like Truffaut and Agnes Varda and Jean-Pierre Melville pop up. I could live inside this movie for 20 days. It captures that punk rock, no rules ethos of mid century cinema, and Linklater doesn't inject artificial drama. The crew is just having fun and becoming a family while Godard wears sunglasses and pontificates. This film found me at the perfect moment while I'm working on my own first feature film, acting as a comforting reminder of why we do this. And this film is also a litmus test for audiences. It won't work for everyone, but for me, it was a 100% home run. The magic of this one is how it refuses to make filmmaking look like a total disaster. So many movies about movies focus on the chaos on set, but Linklater lets us hang out with these creators as they work toward a goal. It portrays Godard as both a lovable genius and an insufferable, pretentious Frenchman without judging him for either. It draws a straight line from the French New Wave to Linklater's own indie roots in the early 90s. And as someone feeling the struggle of production right now, it was exactly the spiritual hug that I feel like I needed. And moving into my top five, we have Warfare. This is a movie that I think is going to be controversial, and it's one that I'm still processing because it's easily one of the most honest and unsettling depictions of war that I've ever seen. I actually attended a Q&A with Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza where Alex Garland said something that became the beating heart of this film. He said, "Nothing can be invented." The movie is constructed as a forensic real-time look at a specific combat mission in Iraq from the early 2000s, and every single thing that you see on screen, every specific line of military jargon, every scream, comes directly from the memories of the soldiers who were actually there. There is a Dogma 95 style to the production where they refuse to fabricate anything for the sake of cinema. It's a tough, relentless watch that no doubt caused people to have panic attacks in the theater. I was almost one of them. But it's an absolute must see for the way that it strips away the macho movie tropes to show the actual physical and emotional toll of combat. And this brings me to something I think a lot of film goers have very little time to talk about, the anti war concept. We've all heard the Truffaut quote that there's no such thing as an anti war film because cinema inherently makes action look exciting. But Warfare, I would say, challenges that. I've seen people misinterpret this as a pro military film because it's so technically accurate. But for me, this is the closest a movie can get to being truly anti war. It doesn't make the violence look cool or cinematic, it makes it look exhausting, confusing, and deeply sad. It shows you the cost of the mission, not just in blood, but in the erosion of the soul. If you walk away from this movie wanting to go to war, you weren't watching the same movie I was. What really floored me, though, was the raw humanity of the characters. We're so used to ultra competent super soldiers in movies, but Warfare highlights the moments where they're just rattled. There's a standout sequence where Will Poulter's character, the team leader, gets knocked off his axis by an IED blast. He doesn't just shake it off like an action hero. He realizes that he's mentally checked out. And so he tells Charles Melton's character that he can't lead anymore. And seeing a team leader openly acknowledge his limits is a level of vulnerability I just don't see in the war film genre. It refuses to hold your hand or tell you how to feel. Instead, it just forces you to stand shoulder to shoulder with these soldiers and endure the horror with them. It's a film that wants to be felt more than interpreted. It's raw, unceremonious, and absolutely essential viewing. I thought this was incredible. And if this film doesn't get a sound design or sound editing Oscar nomination, I'm going to be pissed because it's incredible. Lonely as hell, feet on the ground. What I want is on my mind. The feelings I have after watching Train Dreams are complicated, but they all orbit around the word marvelous. Not in a flashy way, but in a quiet, spiritual way. It's a film that mythologizes ordinary life, turning the story of a man named Robert Grenier into a kind of sprawling Americana folklore. Narrated by Will Patton, it has these drifting spiritual interludes that remind me of Terrence Malick. It's less about a traditional plot and more about feeling time move through a person. And Joel Edgerton is in every single scene, and he's absolutely phenomenal. I hope to see him in the nomination list at the Oscars, though I have a feeling he'll be just nudged out. He plays Grenier as a man who isn't special in any cinematic way, just a guy doing his best, weathering the world with a sturdiness that eventually feels monumental. There's an element of the movie I can't stop thinking about. We see Robert looking at these massive ancient trees, trees that are noted in the movie to have existed for 500 years. They're being cut up and they're being hauled off for a railroad bridge that will be obsolete in 20. And you can see something crack open inside of Robert as he realizes that he's participating in the erasure of something timeless. It captures that intersection of awe and despair, marveling at what we can build while mourning what we have to destroy in order to build it. The director, Clint Bentley, doesn't moralize or turn Robert into a symbol. He just observes the smallness of a man against the vastness of the world. And in that observation, the film, in my opinion, becomes transcendent. By the time we reach the end, we've lived an entire life with Robert. We see him as an old man entering Spokane, Washington, seeing skyscrapers and electric lights for the first time and hearing about astronauts while he's never even used a telephone. His death is unceremonious and perfect because the movie isn't about answers. It's about persistence. It's about the stubborn act of being alive while the world remakes itself around you. It's a rare humanist masterpiece that looks at the dirt under a man's fingernails and then cuts to a mountain range that feels older than time. It's a film that stays with you, or at least it stayed with me, and it's a reminder that every ordinary life is, in its own way, cosmic. I'm honestly struggling with where to begin with my number three pick because Hamnet affected me on such a deep, visceral level that I find myself almost getting combative about it. There's this persistent implication in film discourse that if a movie makes you cry, that it's just pulling cheap emotional levers and that somehow disqualifies it from being one of the best films of the year. But personally, I don't know. I've always believed that if a film makes you feel anything, whether it's joy or terror or this kind of profound soul aching grief, then it has succeeded at its job. And I have to be honest, I wasn't prepared for how this one would floor me. From the climactic centerpiece to the very final frame, I had a lump in my throat that simply would not go away. And what I'm still wrestling with is the film's depiction of how loss creates these incompatible islands of grief. I was captivated by the rift that grows between the two parents, while Agnes becomes entrenched in a mode where grief is her only remaining language. Shakespeare pours that same pain into his art, trying to spread his love for his son out into the world through his writing. And it's a devastating look at how two people can love the same person and yet be completely unable to comfort one another in the aftermath of their absence. Seeing the familiar lines of Hamlet reframed as a father's private elegy, an attempt to give his son the life that he was robbed of, was, I don't know, incredibly powerful for me, especially as someone who grew up with a complicated, almost allergic relationship to Shakespeare's work. And I also have to talk about the performances because this film lives and dies on its humanity. I have to highlight Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal, who gave two of my absolute favorite performances of the year. Jesse Buckley as Agnes is just, I don't know, she's a force of nature. She manages to portray a mother's intuition and later her total emotional collapse without ever making it feel like movie acting. It felt like watching a raw nerve. And Mescal brings this quiet, tortured interiority to Shakespeare that made me understand the man behind the myth in a way I never had before. And Chloe Zhao's direction absolutely gutted me. And while I could say with certainty that I don't think I could watch this film a second time, at least not anytime soon, it's the kind of experience that I know I'm going to keep with me forever. I have to start by saying I feel like I'm on a bit of an island with this one. There was so much hype leading up to its release. Noah Baumbach is really respected, but then it came out to a pretty middling response from critics and audiences alike. And I'll be honest, I was shocked because for me, this isn't just a good movie. It's literally my number two favorite film of the entire year. And I guess it goes without saying, it was my number one until I saw another one later on, but we'll get to that. I've struggled to articulate why this movie hit me so hard, but I think it's because it's a film about the identity tailspin that happens when your life becomes a performance. It follows an actor, Jay Kelly, who realizes that he has lived his one life badly by prioritizing the industry over his own humanity and his own family. Noah Baumbach and his co writer Emily Mortimer have created this surrealist sandbox in the vein of Eight and a Half and All That Jazz, where Kelly literally opens doors into his own memories, moments he didn't realize were life changing until they had long passed. It's a movie that feels like it's drifting, much like a memory does when you're overwhelmed. And that dreamlike looseness is so different from anything that Baumbach has done before. And I personally love the hell out of it. And I know there's a segment of the audience that has a real problem with films like this. They see a story about a massive celebrity and dismiss it as champagne problems. It could be a real hill to climb for some people because they can't seem to strip the celebrity away from the screen to see the actual person underneath. But for me, even though I'm obviously not a movie star, I'm not a celebrity in any right, I saw myself almost completely in Jay Kelly. At one point, Adam Sandler says, "You're Jay Kelly, but I'm Jay Kelly too." And that felt like it was directed at me. The film is expounding on a universal, terrifying truth. You only get one take at life. There are no resets, no reframing, and no chance to go again. When you realize you've been living a lie, it's not about the wealth or the fame, it's about the thousands of tiny acts of forgetting that lead you to wake up one day and realize you don't even know how to be a human being anymore. And what I found most haunting was the way that Baumbach uses these memory doorways to show how Jay has become a stranger to himself. At one point, he admits it out loud. He says, "How could I play a human being when I don't see people? I don't touch people." It's a chilling confession from a man whose entire career is built on the illusion of human connection. He spent decades mastering the art of the second take on set, meticulously refining a performance, while his actual reality, his relationships with his daughters and his own sense of self, was left to decay in the background. Watching him navigate these ghostly versions of his past feels less like a trip down memory lane and more like an autopsy of a soul that specialized in everyone else's life but his own. And technically, I just gotta say, the film is gorgeous. It's got this incredible score by Nicholas Bertel that is just devastating. But the real soul of the film comes from George Clooney and Adam Sandler, who both give what I genuinely believe are career best performances. Clooney captures that aging movie star weariness perfectly, and Sandler provides that grounded, bittersweet heart as the person who remembers the version of Jay that Jay himself forgot. I walked out of this theater feeling like I'd been through an emotional excavation. This isn't just a movie for me, it's a bit of a warning. It's a reminder to hold on to those things that matter before the doors close behind you. It's a masterpiece that left me staring at the ceiling for hours thinking about my own one take. And for that, it's got to be my number two. And also, this truly has one of my favorite endings of any movie this year. The decision that they decide to make in the theater when Jay Kelly is watching his memorial, essentially, I thought it was breathtaking. Ugh. All right. Don't forget to stretch, everyone. It's time for number one. And now, the moment of truth. My number one film of 2025 is. That's right, it's Josh Safdie's Marty Supreme. This isn't just a movie for me, it's a powder keg. It's a film that demands your attention from the very first frame and refuses to let you go until it has completely excavated your nerves. I've always been a fan of the Safdie brothers' frenetic, high wire energy, but seeing Josh fly solo here, loosely inspired by a real life table tennis legend, Marty Reisman, feels like a new evolution. It's a movie that moves with a rhythmic, percussive intensity, trading the gambling debts of uncut gems for an even more dangerous addiction, the desperate need for fame, respect, and recognition. And at the center of it all is Timothy Chalamet delivering what I'm calling the most ferocious and alive performance of his career and of 2025. This is not the soft spoken romantic Timothy that we're all used to. Long gone are the days of Elio and Arthur. He is playing Marty Mauser, a man who doesn't just play ping pong, he practically combusts through it. Marty is a hustler, a liar, a man obsessed with the idea of being supreme, and Chalamet leans into that cocky, relentless drive with a total lack of apology, creating a character who is magnetic, even when he's being absolutely loathsome. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. He captures that specific kind of hunger that only exists when you feel that the world is constantly trying to erase you. And look, I was particularly struck by how the film uses the era of post World War II America to explore Marty's compulsive need for legitimacy. As a Jewish man living in the shadow of the Holocaust, Marty's obsession with success isn't just about greed. It's a little bit about greed, but it's also about visibility as a means of survival. The film portrays this every man for himself grifter mentality as a uniquely American armor. Watching him navigate messy personal betrayals like his relationship with his friend Rachel, played by Odessa A'zion, who is excellent, you realize that his self-mythologizing is a response to a world that feels fragile and uncertain. It's a brilliant, stinging critique of how we fold respectability, patriotism, and economic stability into a single, exhausting American dream. But the reason this is my number one, the reason it's a film I want to yell about from the rooftops, is that final moment. I won't spoil it here, but the last stretch of the film reframes everything you've seen before it. It's the moment where the noise finally fades, the bravado cracks, and Chalamet allows a flicker of real, raw vulnerability to bleed through. It's a heartbreaking, quiet ending to such a loud movie, and it left me completely stunned. It's a film about the terrifying cost of building your entire soul around the need to be seen. And honestly, there's so much I want to say about this. I mean, I made a whole video about it, so you could watch that, but there's so much more I want to say about this. I'll just cap it off by saying it's easily the best thing I watched all year. I haven't even finished my coffee. Still got some more to go. It's gotten a little cold by now. But that's it. That's my top 20 films of 2025. Looking back at this list, it's clear that the "is cinema dead" conversation is officially over. It might still be ongoing in other ways, certain mergers. I won't get into that here, but we've been fed some truly weird, quirky, stylish, and thought-provoking films in the last 12 months. When you have masters like Linklater, PTA, and Catherine Bigelow still swinging for the fences, and newer directors like Clint Bentley and Zach Kreger putting out amazing work, you realize we're actually in a little bit of a golden era. And hey, maybe you disagree with me, and that's okay. Let me know down below. But before I head out, I do want to say a huge thank you to all of you. Whether you've been here since my first video or you just discovered the channel through a random algorithm recommendation this week, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting and for being part of this hopefully ongoing and growing community. Talking about film is what I love most, and the fact that I get to do it with all of you makes the experience of watching these movies 1,000 times better. If your favorite film of the year didn't make my list, or if you think I'm totally wrong about Jay Kelly or Warfare, let's talk about it in the comments. Don't worry, I read them all. And when you're done down there, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel in 2026. And then when you're done with that, don't forget to follow me over on Letterboxd so you can see what I'm watching, when I'm watching it. And when you're done with that, go check out my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On there, I talk about movies. I talk to people about movies that inspired them. And if you want to be on it, I want you on it. Come talk to me on the podcast in 2026. Here's to a great 2025 at the movies. I'll see you all next year.